This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Okay, Bob, you're gonna have to squeeze in next to the Baghdaddy right there, and I'll get in close on his left side.
Not that I mind cuddling up, but
At least it isn't awkward.
well, let me just shift a little here.
No, it's awkward.
Phil, you wanted to talk about shared space, right?
Shared narrative space.
Can I get off Phil's lap now?
Well, with that, I'd say welcome to the less cramped than I thought 378th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. My name's Chris.
I'm the cuddly one, Phil.
And that means I must be Old Man Logan.
Old Man Logan on the end. We have a bit of a different setup today.
I don't know. Can people actually tell it's a bit of a setup?
I mean, the people that are watching
People
us
that are
on
watching.
stream.
I don't know.
can.
Well, we're 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, and we can like look at each other. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not like looking like
Yeah.
from the end of the
I'm
thing. around.
digging it.
I feel like I'm like closer to everybody now.
You feel close? Are you feeling close?
I am feeling close.
I'm feeling much closer.
Inside the trust tree.
I'm totally inside the trust tree. And since we're inside the trust tree, why don't we talk about one thing that was interesting to us this past week? So, Bob, why don't you tell me about your one thing?
Hockey is exciting again.
I mean, it is in Buffalo.
It is in Buffalo.
The Sabres are good.
Yes, our
that
hockey team
mistress.
is playing well right now. They're playing exciting hockey, and I'm watching them instead of doing other things, which is the downside.
You enjoy your time with Lucy. She'll keep holding that football, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that thought too. But you know what? I'm going to enjoy it while I can.
Ride it while you can,
Yeah,
right?
because it's not like last year when they won 10 in a row, when they won like 7 of those games in overtime barely. Like,
Yeah.
they've blown out 2 teams this
That's
year.
awesome.
already.
I mean, listen, I would be plenty happy for us to have a successful winning season. It's been so long since we've had like a real winning season that
Yep.
I don't know. I'm nervous. I get scared.
That's fair. Like, I mean, the same thing with the Bills, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
My humor comes out and like my nervousness about it comes out in being
Yeah.
sarcastic.
You know what the terrible thing about having not being in charge and not having like the admin controls on Twitch?
Do you have to now watch the ad when you try to start it up on your
Yeah,
phone?
I can't just like flip over to the chat and
Yeah.
like look at the chat on my phone. Like,
Boss has got this shit locked down.
yeah, apparently. I mean, so I can't actually read what's going on in the chat, unfortunately.
Welcome to the life of a minion.
Apparently. Wow, it's just awful. It is just kind of awful.
Phil,
till
what
we
about you? What's your
unionize.
one thing?
My one thing, we kicked off our Things from the Flood campaign this Sunday. So this is the same players that I had, which is Bob, Glenn, and Tony the Rainmaker. This is your Tales from the Loop kids, now angsty teenagers.
Yes.
And post-flood teenagers, because
Yes.
all of you grew up in the evacuation zone,
We did.
and all of you were evacuated. So we played out a bunch of that. We did actually, we started our mystery, and then we did a flashback and went back to the night of the flood, and talked about the flood and talked about your times during the like post-evacuation and how you got resettled and all that stuff. It was good. Like that
It's a good
session.
session.
That session was good, and it ended. For a first episode, they found a dead body, and then they got into an argument about what to do next. And so, Glenn's character Ree just walked off in one direction, and Tony's character walked off in the other direction, and Bob was left there to watch the body until Tony gets the authorities.
Well then.
Yes.
Like it was great. Like there was an argument about it, and like it was like it ended, and I was like, I'm like, all I see is them walking off in either direction in the field, and the camera just like coming upward.
Yeah.
Like and just seeing Bob standing there next to this body. It was really good. I just like really happy to be back into that game, and I'm really looking forward to this campaign's gonna be banging. So.
Yep.
Chris, how about you? You went out and did stuff in the real world?
I did, sort of the real world. So Buffalo had a Clued Up event this past weekend, and it was a murder mystery set in the 50s, and the way that it works is you download the app, you get a team, there's like a bunch of teams, there's like 50 or 60 teams that did this over the course of the event. And it's a mystery, and it uses GPS to go around and find witnesses to talk to. And then there's challenges, like you have to answer trivia questions or some Buffalo trivia or stuff like that. Like one of them was, oh, look, the person's run away. You have to run to their location in 5 minutes or they get away.
Ooh.
Wow.
So we had to do that. And you can run around and get extra clues for like when you find witnesses, you can ask them a question if you want. You only have a limited amount of them though.
Were these like real people?
No, they
Okay.
weren't. It was all on the app.
Okay.
But they had videos.
But you had to like get
Right.
to the location in order for
Correct,
it to,
in order for that to click open. And then they had videos, this company, they made videos, like YouTube videos, of all of the people that you were talking to. So they had the text version in the app, but then they also had a video that you could hit play, and the video would play
Oh,
the
that's
actual,
cool.
like you were interacting with them. So it was neat. I really enjoyed it. We were terrible, because as soon as you like start guessing and not getting the right answers, you get docked like penalties.
Oh.
So out of like 60 teams, we finished like 40. With like a 4-hour time when it really only took about 2 hours to find all the stuff. That's how many times we got it wrong. It's actually not like, they don't like spell it out for you. You actually have to figure it out. And it was based on the fact that a set of people had a really terrible alibi. Like we knew what the murder weapon was. We figured that out pretty quick.
Yeah.
But like finding out who actually killed the person, like we were like, I don't know. Like you have to really read into there's like 15 different suspects and there's like 30 different witnesses that you have to run around to talk to. And you can get informants on them to get extra information, ask them questions. But sometimes when you ask them questions, like there's like 5 options of questions and all the questions aren't always very good, in my opinion. And then sometimes they just don't answer the question in any meaningful way.
Well,
Yeah, that's
So it's like, I just wasted a resource for nothing.
see, there's a whole Pandas episode that dropped today
Resource
on
management.
on pacing mysteries.
I mean, it was perfectly paced and it was a competition, right? So it's not
Yeah.
not one of those situations where like we're trying to pace out a mystery for a story, right? And there were some people that finished it in like an hour and 27 minutes. So
Oof. But it was fun. Like, and
Oh,
so
we
you
had a good
You had
time.
to drive around and stuff.
no,
right?
no, we just walk around. It's all downtown Buffalo.
Oh, it was just all
So-
downtown. All right, so it
nice.
wasn't like all over the city.
No, it wasn't. It was starting in Niagara Square,
Oh, okay.
and then it was within like a probably a 10-block radius of that.
Okay.
It was a lot of
That's
fun
interesting.
actually. Used a lot of the monuments and things down there as like the places to go meet up with people.
Very, very cool.
That's what I did.
Neat.
Is that it? Are we all done?
That's our one thing.
All right, let's talk about announcements then. So our new Twitch channel is in full swing. Thank you, Rob Aberzato, and everybody
Yeah.
else who's contributed to this. We have this show, the Misdirected Mark podcast, which is on Tuesday evenings from 8 till 10 p.m. That's weekly, except for November. We're going on hiatus. We take November off.
Yes.
We have the BXP Bicons. They're playing Blades in the Dark. That is every other Sunday, and I believe that is from 7 till around 9:30. I'm sure I'll be corrected if that's incorrect. And then we have the FM Gamers. That is every other Monday, and that was yesterday from this recording. And we play from 7 till 9, and we're playing a 5th edition game with some variations on it called Spelljammed, based on Spelljammer and some Expedition to the Very Peaks and other Men in Blacky type things.
Cool.
We're also like kicking around the idea of putting some of the other podcasts on the Twitch channel and maybe putting together some other shows and things like that. Nothing's set in stone, but there's like rumors of like maybe Down with D&D goes on to Twitch and maybe there's a Minecraft night.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually thought that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, we're toying with the idea of setting up a kind of regular-ish Minecraft stream where, like, sometimes Phil will be in there, sometimes it'll be me, you know, whatever.
Doing stuff. Talking about, what I'm building.
Uh-huh.
You could watch me die like I did last night.
Maybe even if we're allowed to, maybe we'll even do some. We could do some like individual like design journal series.
I've actually thought of that. I've always been a little like iffy on it, but like I might do something like I could stream like making character sheets and stuff in Illustrator and things like when I'm sitting doing like that kind of work.
I was even just thinking of like 15 to 30 minute things where like talking about design processes of games that have been getting made over the course of time. Like
Oh, you mean like actual like little sit down round table kind of? Oh, I totally would do that.
yeah, like
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I would totally.
like we
do
could
that.
even do that online, right? Like we don't have to
Sure.
be in the same
Yeah.
place for that.
Totally.
Like we could talk about the design, like an encoded design corner. Like we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the design of one, or the design of like Relic Hunters, or the design of Long Live the Queen, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The many setbacks of Hydro Hackers.
Yeah. Hijackers.
I want to burn this whole game to the ground. Oh no.
Been a little while since one of those has happened.
Somebody said they want to see Phil's house
In Minecraft, I think. Is
in
what Senda
Minecraft.
said.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we're talking about.
I got my new. You can see my murder room.
Yes.
My very clinical-looking murder room. It's very
Somebody asked what the FM in FM Gamer stands for. Some might say it stands for Fighting Mongoose. Some might say that it stands for Full Monty. Some might say that it stands for anything and everything that begins with an F and an M. Kind of depends on how we feel on any given week. Just saying.
Run that through. Did we run that past marketing? You just do that yourself.
No, that was actually a conscious choice by the fact that we have a bunch of actors and improvers that are on the show.
Conscious
so they
choice,
improv
bro.
what the FM is.
Yeah.
Do you say it on every episode?
Not
what it
yet.
is?
We're still
Okay.
gearing
Because
up
that
for
would
some
be
stuff.
now that gimmick. That gimmick's funny.
Ange said if it was MF gamers, that'd be totally different.
Bunch of MF gamers.
I know,
playing
right? Maybe we'll flip it around.
You need a different cast for that. That's just a much meaner game.
We had a little bit of technical difficulties last night. Our camera overheated and bottomed out on us.
That is how dope this game is. The camera overheated.
That's right. They burned that camera out.
Yeah.
I know, but the tried and true, the Logitech.
The Logitech's still doing its thing.
That thing, man.
That's
never,
a different Logitech. That's
I know,
not the
but
old
that's
one.
the same.
still,
That's the
Logitech
same
is
model I
Logitech.
got.
Yeah, it is.
I just bought that. I just bought that guy for $20.
It's not as good as the 720, but for $20 you can't beat it.
Yeah.
It's 780p.
It is.
Yeah. For $20, it's 780p. Like that's like, yeah.
Last thing about this is if you want to, this Twitch channel, you can subscribe to it. That will help support this show and all our other endeavors for Misdirected Mark. And Rob would greatly appreciate it. So would Senda.
Yes.
So would we all, really.
Yeah,
So say
I
we
mean,
all.
I mean, I think also that that if the Twitch channel really picks up, it's more encouragement for us to go put more content on the
It's
Twitch channel.
true. I mean, if there's subscribers, that's more
Then-
reason to make more stuff on Twitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That means you want to see us doing things. Also, if you happen to be an Amazon Prime user, you have a free Twitch subscription.
Yep.
If you're not using it for anything else, please use it for us. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, totally. Rock on.
All right, let's move on. I guess we're going to go to the workshop, huh?
Hang on.
You ready? You ready? You ready? You ready?
Yes.
3, 2.
Workshop, share narrative space, have the same vision of what's going on. Don't get confused. Workshop, play better games.
Don't suck.
I decided to invade your space
That's okay.
so we could share it.
Smitty's got new speakers tonight. Just tested them out. Just tested them out. For
Just testing
Smitty.
them out, right? So we're going to talk about something that exists in every role-playing game, and it's incredibly necessary for the game to function. When it works, it helps us to create very amazing stories, but when it fails, when it breaks down, it's very confusing and it's very frustrating. So tonight, we're going to delve and dig into shared narrative space, and you might even see me sitting in Phil's lap. Tell us if you want to see that.
Narrative space.
Oh, narrative space. I keep screwing that part up.
It's
Sorry.
not that I have a problem with you sitting in my lap. I just it's gonna get out of control quick.
That's
and then
true.
it's gonna be all weird because it's not something you're gonna consent to.
That's. I mean,
the sitting part.
I'm
yes,
going
but
to sit in your lap.
I know, but
and-
the playing with your hair and all that's gonna
Well,
get
I'm going to say whatever happens after that, I will consent to it at least for the duration of the next 15 minutes after I'm sitting in your lap.
that is the showman in Chris. Chris is like, well, I guess I could get groped if it's gonna get a laugh on the show.
That's true. That's
As
absolutely
long as it's
true.
consent.
well, let's not. All right, we're.
Although that might make
we're
you feel
straying.
you feel dirty because I'm only consenting to it because it's for showmanship.
Yeah.
See, that might make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
See, okay, there we go. Here, why don't you break this down for me? This idea of shared narrative space, definition,
Shared
Panda.
narrative
Here we
space?
go.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Right. Let's. We're going to build our way into this definition because we kind of need to start small and grow it up.
Okay.
Okay. So narrative space is an imagined construct that contains the location and setting in the game, containing where the characters are, what things are around them, smells, sounds, textures, like all those things. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's often conveyed spoken, but it can also be conveyed by written text, illustrations, video, like all those other things can help. But our primary method for communicating narrative space is spoken word.
Because we're playing role-playing games.
Because we're playing role-playing games. Shared narrative space, then, is that same imagined construct, but imagined by more than one person. And what that means in an RPG is how we all imagine a scene, a character, a situation, and through that imagined construct's perspective, what's going on in the game.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
Okay. Which then helps to inform us how we're going to act, right? Because if how we see the situation around us is going to influence how we do things.
That's, yeah.
Okay, and like not to be overly dramatic or like, but this is actually the very fabric on which RPGs is built, right? Like the GM says stuff, describes like you are in a 10 by 10 room, blah blah blah. The players imagine a 10 by 10 room and then take actions.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And if we don't have that, it's really bad.
It's a problem, right? Go ahead.
So how do we build this shared narrative space? That's what we're going to delve into. This role-playing experience that we're talking about relies on us maintaining some level of a shared narrative space, or an SNS, to get, acronymic about it. Acronymic?
Yes.
Sure, I'm going to make that
Sure.
word
I'll
up.
allow it.
Thank you, Bob. If we're going to, as a group, take actions in the game, we need to understand what is going on around us so that we can factor that into all of our decisions. Phil already said that, but I'm going to say it again because
Yeah, no,
it's important
it's important.
to like put it out there. So in our games, we need to build this space, and then we need to maintain it also. However you might do that, we're going to probably talk about a number of ways to do that.
Sure.
Depending on the game you're playing, different things are going to go into the building of your SNS. Here are some of the things that contribute to that. Phil?
We said this as we were leading off, right? GM's description and narrative. In more traditional games where the GM holds most of the narrative control, this is the primary way that your shared narrative space gets built.
Sure.
So, for instance, you enter a room.
Okay.
It's a hexagon with 30-foot walls on each side.
Okay.
There's an open fire pit in the center of the room that lights the room, but the edges of the walls are like all shadowy because the fire pit doesn't kind of cast out light.
All right, so it's a
That far.
fairly big room then. How big is it across about?
Well, every wall's 30 by 30,
Yeah,
so what's
it's 60, a little longer than 60.
It's big.
Probably that
There's math in
70,
there.
80 foot
Mathing
range.
is hard.
Why?
Ow.
Ouch. That's why I brought it up, because using a hexagonal room might be a failure in shared narrative space if somebody asked that question.
Absolutely.
Anyways, another thing that you can do is to help with this is player descriptions and narrative. So like if your game has more distributed narrative control, then the contributions of the players will also build upon that. So for instance, if I'm allowed to, in this fictional game that we're playing, throw down some sort of element into the game, I could say, in the shadows, there's something moving about that we can't quite see that's humanoid.
Sure. Or you might be like, there's curtains
That too, I could say.
Yeah.
That. Curtains that are hanging towards the middle of the room, which
that I'm
is
going to duck behind.
strange, because why are they hanging in the middle of the room?
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Sure.
What's another one?
Illustrations and maps. So the battle mat, right,
Yep.
is a great way. Like, what is it? Battle mat, map tiles, like all of those things.
Whatever visual thing that you were using on the table, be it to
Yeah.
scale or
your
or
VTT
yeah.
in an
Lego.
Legos.
Yeah, Jerry does that, right?
I mean, even if it's like relative positioning maps,
Yep.
those help.
Absolutely. What else?
Minis,
Yeah, totally.
folks that you can put on the map.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cards, especially cards with pictures on them, because pictures.
Sure.
Markers, like little tokens.
Yeah, like a bloody marker if you're playing 4E, like that conveys information about what's going on in the space.
So like minis can represent characters. Like they give you a visual of what that character looks like too.
Yeah.
For instance, Jane Calvert from the FM Gamers just found a Warforged Monk mini, which I don't know why Jane would be looking for a Warforged Monk mini, because Jane is playing a human,
Jane's next character,
probably.
Warforged monk. Bob was.
I
once-
had a Warforged
Bob
monk.
was a Warforged monk in our
It's
original Eberron
the
game.
Gale Force 9 Warforged Monk mini is pretty badass.
Oh, you should take a
I
look.
like
Take a
it.
look at that.
Yeah. Using cards like aspects can be written on index cards. That really helps flesh out a scene, especially in Fate or a game that has any kind of element. Really, I think that's a thing that's underutilized in games. Is just let me write down a couple words on a card just
And
to
throw it on the
throw it on the
table?
table instead of using a map.
Yeah, hey, we're gonna get to that when we get to some tips and tricks. That's a really good one.
Plastic fire token to show that something is on fire is another great example of how to use a fire
You
token.
just mentioned Gale Force 9, right? Gale Force
Yeah.
9 makes
Yes.
those,
They do.
those cool like 3D fire tokens and shit. Yeah.
What's another one?
Props, right? Like
Props are great.
Yeah.
Mad props.
Yeah, props can often what's it called? They can represent something in the game.
Be it a hat that a character wears.
Yeah, it could be a clue.
Could be
right,
a clue.
like you hand them
oh,
the actual
man.
clue.
The Call of Cthulhu Mask of Nar-a-tive
box
thing.
of goodies.
I forget who makes it, but
Yes.
it's you talked to Sean P. Kelly, and he hasn't even like busted open the box yet. Last time I heard, he's just been printing out the stuff. I'm like,
Right.
what are you doing? Like, I know what's in that because I talked to Walt,
Yeah.
former gnome Walt Janowski, who's playing it. Like, there's like USB drives attached to like wax cylinders and like records that you can plug into your computer and play.
That's so badass.
Like, those are awesome props. These are props. Like, these are
Yeah.
high-end props. But it could be other simple things. Like, I used to have glass rods
Yep.
that were like wands that I could hand out as like magic items to players.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're using your magic item? Like, you're going to cast a spell with your wand? Why don't you pull it out and flick and swish it?
I did
Swish
a
and flick it.
thing. I did a thing a while ago when I was running All for One, the Musketeer game, where I put the major clues on index cards before, like during my prep, including pictures of them. And then when somebody like found something, I would be like, "Oh, you find this vial," and like hand them the card,
Oh, that's neat.
right? Because that's not that's its own form of prop, right? Like it's a picture on a card, but it lets them hold it, look at it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
So, when you combine all of these things together, they can really help build that shared narrative space
Absolutely.
and reinforce it.
Yep. So here's now the tricky part, right? The tricky part about shared narrative space is that anything that's not conveyed out loud in a picture, whatever, our brain fills in the gaps.
That's true.
Okay? So we're going to do like a little example.
Okay, I will be happy to do that example. There's that room from before, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that hexagon room
Yep.
that's some amount of feet across, but
Yep.
each wall is 30 feet on each side.
Yeah.
There's this open fire pit in the center of the room. It's lighting the room, but the edges are shadowy because there's curtains hanging away from the walls for some reason.
Strange, but okay.
For some reason.
Yep.
So, Phil, what does the door look like?
Right. I think the door is...
Wait, there's a door in this room?
Right.
What?
Yeah. So the door's bronze.
I assume there's a door.
And it's got like the rivets all around the edge, and it's got like the big ring
is it
on the
riveted?
center.
Is it riveted closed, or is it just like?
No, the rivets are on like it's
Oh,
on the
somebody
door.
riveted it into the outside of the
Yeah,
door
yeah,
frame
like
to help
the-
reinforce the
yes.
frame.
Yeah,
And the whole thing's bronze?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
right.
That's weird.
So, right, this is the thing. So this little example, and of course, we rig these examples, but what this example shows is that the shared narrative space is not 100% shared.
No, not at all.
Right? Like Bob's example about is there even a door, right? Brings about a thing. And as I describe the door, it's obviously not the door you were thinking of.
Because it's funny because we are in this hexagon room with a fire
Sure.
pit and these curtains, and then all of a sudden, poof! Now there's a door in the one wall. Like,
Correct.
We didn't know that was there, but now it was always there to our characters, but to us as viewers, like all of a sudden, poof! It's
Yep.
like the gamers sometimes when they made those jokes.
Yeah, I mean, the part of those jokes is about like
Shared
the lack
narrative
of shared
space.
shared narrative space.
There's a set of stairs too, right?
Yeah, that's actually before we get to at break time. I'm going to tell that story again because you and I tell it all the time, but
Yeah.
it is a
a
perfect
perfect
example.
story.
Yeah. So that's the thing about shared narrative space. It's never 100% shared. We're all inferring stuff into it, and it's because of that we run into challenges, right? That the fact that when we don't hear a detail and we need to know something, our brain's like, "Oh, I got that. I'll fill that in for you."
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
also the thing, like, if you've ever like played a campaign for a while, and then go back and reintroduce how the characters look.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, people are like, "What? Like you have long hair?"
Uh-huh.
Like I've never pictured your character with long hair.
Well, like here's an example. We played the Airy Peaks for months and months and months and years, and then
Right.
all of a sudden I was like, "Oh yeah, these characters are this, this, and this," and the rest of you were like, "I thought everybody in this town looked exactly the same."
oh, the NPCs.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Because you described.
What, they're
the
not all human?
No. He described the other party. The what's
Yeah,
the
that's right.
southern guy?
I can't remember.
I know.
yeah.
The southern guy and the rest of his party, and like you described him, and I'm like, I totally did not picture them.
Yeah,
like that.
the southern guy had darker skin.
Yes.
Pearl was Asian.
Yes. Yeah, and somewhere in the beginning when you first introduced those characters, you described them.
Yeah.
But in the like year that passed, every time we saw them, like I didn't retain the description of them, so I just invented how I thought they looked. Right? Like I invented like, I had like I had like a Mark Twain looking dude, somewhere between Mark Twain and Sam Elliott.
Because he had a southern accent.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But like my brain filled those things in. Okay, so that's our challenge, right? Like that's the challenge we're running into.
Yeah, and since the primary way that the SNS is conveyed through the spoken word, we have to really be actively listening in order to hear everything. And that can apply to not just the physical, but also social situations too. I mean, physical because which NPCs are actually present in the situation. Social because what is actually going on and who is actually, what are everybody's motivations.
Yep.
If you're not paying attention, that can go terribly, terribly wrong.
Yes.
Also, like, if we get distracted, like, our minds, like Phil said, they're just going to fill in details.
Yeah, your brain's not gonna. Your brain, if you're missing enough details, your brain will stop and ask you to go ask, like, can you describe that again?
But if you're not, and you just kind of fill it in because you think you know what's going on,
Right.
and
Like-
then somebody else has a very different idea of what's going on,
Yeah.
that's when we get into some serious problems.
Yeah, like I mean, for instance, let's say we're gearing up for a combat, and I'm describing the combat, and everything's fine, except that Bob gets a text message from work that there's a potential outage, right? So I'm still describing, and Bob's checking, and Bob's like a little annoyed because he shouldn't have to, like, it's not his night to answer the text, but he is, right? And now things are going on, but Bob gets it settled by the time I'm like, cool, let's roll for initiative.
Bob goes first.
Right.
All right.
Bob's like, I charge forward.
And we're
Yeah.
like, really? There's lava right there. And we're going to get to that
do
in
you mean
just a
there's
second, right? Like, we're actually going to get to that right now.
And I'd be like, yeah, there's lava. You totally said there was lava. Oh, you were messing with your phone.
Right. Okay, so when the shared narrative space is not perfect, we run into issues in our games that disrupt the flow of play, right? I think we just did the example, but what's that
Yeah.
first one?
Where are we at? We're talking about when things go wrong?
Yes, common problems.
Oh. So when a player takes an action but is missing an important piece of information about
That's
the situation.
that example
We just
right
talked
there,
about
yep.
that, right? It's good to reinforce it though.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when revealing the information, they want to change their action. And you should just let them because they didn't
Oh
have to
yeah.
understand.
I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, I know GMs back in the '80s who were like, no, what you say is what you do.
Well, that's why you had a caller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct.
Hopefully your caller didn't get distracted.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is even worse because now you have a single point of failure
But yeah, right.
in your network design.
Your caller better be on point. Just throwing that out there.
Yep.
Anyways, like for instance, like I rush at the orc and tackle them to the ground.
Really? Because they're on fire.
What?
You're going to take
Since
fire
when?
damage. They've been on fire the whole time.
What are you talking about? Who put them on fire? How did they get set on fire?
It's an immolation orc. That's how it works.
You just said there was an orc,
Yeah, I said there was an immolation orc.
and now you see the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've illustrated
There's
that.
different kinds of orcs.
Yeah.
Oh
Shit.
no.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of them. And I'm 100% with you, right? Like just rewind 2 seconds, retake the turn. But what it does do is it now lengthens. It's going to lengthen the entire turn
Yeah,
order.
we've just edited, which is fine. You can edit.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with editing.
Nope, there isn't. But
Hopefully,
you're,
the person that hopefully that person that needs to be edited at that time isn't the person that needs to be edited constantly.
yes.
Because that's a player problem.
Yeah. But there are challenges about that. I mean, if
That might not just be a player problem. That might be a problem. I don't want to say that's a player problem. There's a number of varieties of issues where that could crop up. Like
Absolutely.
maybe they have a hard time being engaged. Maybe they need to figure out. Maybe you just need to figure out a way
Maybe
to
it's an
keep them.
attention thing?
Attention thing. So like you have to figure out how they can be engaged. For instance, like I know plenty of players who have a hard time concentrating unless they're fidgeting.
Sure.
Which that used
used to be
bug
one
the-
of those.
used to bug the shit out of me.
Yep.
But then I realized like, oh, they're doing that not because they're bored or anything like that, but because that helps them
Yeah,
stay
it
focused.
takes
Yeah.
one thing. Like Dave was notorious for this, and as long as it didn't get to a point where I couldn't concentrate, I had no problem with Dave fidgeting during play.
Yeah.
Occasionally he'd get like something noisy, and I'd be like, I'd just like tap him or something, and he'd slow it back
Yeah,
down.
there are certain players that I know of that just they have just a short attention span too.
Yep.
And those players, like you almost have to constantly be finding ways to tap them to keep them involved.
Well, and what's good is one tip is to parse your things smaller.
Yes.
Like don't give big sweeping descriptions of the room.
Uh-huh.
Like parse it into or change your. We're going to talk about tips in a second,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
change your cadence and things like that. Okay.
Tell me about the next one.
Yeah, the other big problem is missing important information, right? So a player misses some information that's crucial for the game progressing. This could be something like either the whole clue or part of a clue. It might be something where the GM's being subtle, like they describe the room, and they don't and they mention, but they don't emphasize that like particular symbol or is on a wall, right? And somebody missed that detail for a second because their brain was like, I think I got to take a leak. I wonder if this is a good time to take a leak, right? Because remember, we talk about levels, right? Like,
Yeah.
you popped out to the personal level
Because
and
I
you're
have
like,
to pee.
You're like, man, I drank a lot of water. I got to pee.
Yeah,
And what
just
you,
gonna keep talking about peeing through the
Yep.
segment.
You gotta urinate. Waterfalls running, faucets.
waterfalls.
Bob, when you go to the bathroom, make sure you turn off your lav.
I'm good.
Because,
because that's a thing.
that's a thing. I do
Not
that.
that we've ever learned that from Chris.
I do that.
Well, they
bef-
call
I've
it a
done that
lav mic.
I've done that pre-show a few times.
Yes.
We won't talk about what I was doing
Okay.
pre-show.
So, so yeah, if you're not paying attention and you miss the subtle clue, like now the game can stymie.
Yes, that's
Okay.
true.
You may also miss the tonal shift in a game, right? If you miss that beat, you may miss like the description of the creepiness of the woods, and proceed like nothing's wrong, right? Like you've missed all the ominous signs, like this woods is terrible and haunted and is likely going to kill you, and you're like, cool, I'm going to be the first one, heads in. Right? And people are like, really? Like, wow, you're braver than I thought. You've only gotten 4 hit points.
What are you talking
Creepy
about?
woods.
Yeah.
What do you mean creepy woods?
Right.
It was sunny, and it was like 70.
Yeah. Sunny and 70 here in the field. But,
Yeah, but
there's like a chill emanating from the woods.
Do you mean
and
it's
it's
not like
dark
dark?
and shadowy at high noon.
But these were called the Fey Forest.
Right.
Like, it's supposed to be like mystical and lovely.
No.
and yet
creepy.
when you show up, that's what it looks like.
Oh, I missed that part.
Right. And I think we're all familiar with this, right? Like these examples which we're ad-libbing are because it's so common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really shouldn't have been dealing with that word problem, apparently.
Yes.
Or I probably should have dealt
Yeah,
with the word
fidgeting
problem.
with-
and
I'm fidgeting with the-
Then maybe I should have just asked what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to redescribe it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So, in most of these cases, these breakdowns in SNS cause some kind of delay in the game. We kind of mentioned that already.
Mm-hmm.
But, the character who wants to change their action, it causes the flow to pause, but that's okay. The character who's missing information now fails to proceed to the next set of clues in the game. That's more of a problem. That's why you
That's-
should really reinforce those core clues.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of subtle clues because for just this
We were
reason.
talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
So, my quick comment on that: I have no problem with clues that aren't 100% obvious when they are not core to what's going on.
That is fair.
Because if there are things that are on the outside or will just let you skip things,
Right.
then you don't necessarily need them.
So-
if you definitely need them to move on to the next part of the adventure, then they should just be
Right.
as obvious as humanly possible.
So to use a project management term, if they were critical path clues,
Yes, critical.
don't
path.
be subtle on those.
Uh-huh.
Right, be like as overt as possible, like ding ding clue, like kind of thing. And yes, then I would have no problem with ones that were not on the critical path to be more subtle. Because
Yeah.
if you get it, you get it, and if you don't,
Those
you
are
don't.
like bonus.
Yeah, they're bonus clues. I mean, I like how Gumshoe deals with those anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo.
All right, and then that character who misses that tonal shift in the game, they take those actions that are not quite good.
Yes, non-optimal.
Mm-hmm.
Before we jump out of this into the first break, Bob and I are gonna talk about a classic moment of where this gap occurs. It's a classic moment in our gaming history. It was back in the 90s.
Yes. Late 90s.
Late 90s, mid to late 90s. We were playing Palladium Fantasy.
Yep.
Bob was GMing. That's how you know it was a long time ago. Bob was GMing.
That's
Yeah.
a long time
And
ago.
Mike and I were we were on some adventure. I don't even remember the setup for it, but what happens is we go into this tower, we kill a couple of things, and we miss that Bob has described this room as having a staircase going upward. Like we just didn't we had gone to the tower, and I think for Mike and I had just assumed we went up and then killed something.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we talked about this in the
We
show
have
at
talked
some
about it in the
point,
past.
yeah.
We've actually talked about it a bunch of times, but it's perfect for this example. So Mike and I finished the encounter, and I'm like, cool, we should just rest here for the night because I would like to recharge my power points, so that I'm ready to kick some ass the next day.
Seems safe, right?
Sure.
Sure, we're in a tower, right? Like
What could go wrong?
we've already
door's
killed
closed.
the outer door's closed, and we've killed everything in the tower, except that in Mike's and my shared narrative space, we're on some floor, and there's nothing above us.
Correct.
In Bob's narrative space,
Uh-huh.
there's a staircase that goes up to the next floor with stuff in it. So we go to sleep and promptly get attacked
By something that came down the stairs that you didn't think were
Yes.
there.
and found two people sleeping next to like some murdered bodies, and then promptly attacked us. And we fought back, but like Mike and I were like pissed at the time. We were like, "How the hell are we getting attacked? Like we secured this place." And Bob's like, "They came down the stairs." And
What stairs?
Right, we're like, "What stairs?"
The stairs I told you about.
But
Right.
you never said there were stairs.
Right. And so to this day, nobody actually knows who's right. Did Bob say it? Did he not? Like, is there a reason why the both of us assumed that there weren't stairs? Like,
The funniest part in hindsight, not misdirected
Mark,
word
word
scramble. In hindsight, they went into a tower. Okay.
Yeah,
Tower
I thought you were
implies
abstracting-
more than one floor.
yeah, I just thought you were abstracting the whole encounter.
And
Like,
you
we
went
fought
in the door. You fought some
We fought
stuff.
the thing. So anyway, I mean, so it was that moment, right? Like that's a gap in shared narrative space. If we
yeah.
were all synced up, we would have cleared the whole tower.
Yep.
Murdered everything because we could have, and then gone and taken a nap.
Yeah, this stuff doesn't seem like it's all that complicated, but it's a thing that gets missed all the time.
Sure.
It happens all the time, and it's problematic at conventions where it's noisy.
Yep.
There are issues about keeping your table.
And honestly,
centered.
even under ideal circumstances, you can hear what the person said, and your brain can misinterpret it.
Absolutely.
It's very true.
And I've heard people say things twice, and I heard the same thing said twice, and my brain still said it's this when it's really this, and it's like, wait a minute, how did I not get that?
Yeah, exactly right.
And it'll
right.
happen.
All right, so that's our explanation about shared narrative space. We're gonna take a break, check in with the chat room, and see what they have to say about this topic. When we come back, we're gonna do more of a roundtable-y part where we're gonna talk about some tips and tricks and things like that. But first, at random, one of us.
I guess we didn't want to talk about when it's most important. Did we miss that part?
I feel like did we skip it?
I feel like we skipped that.
Do you want to backtrack or just blaze over it?
Apparently, we weren't all in the same shared narrative
Space.
space.
We're in the same podcasting space.
Yeah, like man,
I saw blue. I figured you were done talking.
Rewind.
because you're supposed to introduce that part. That's why I didn't say anything.
Yeah, the most important, right? All right, fine. Let's do it. Back up. It's like as if we planned it.
So when is it most important?
Right.
I mean,
So it's always important to have shared narrative space in the game, but there are actually times where I think it's a bit more important than others.
okay.
I think one of those things is when a character can be hurt or killed.
Or when their resources can be taken away from them.
Sure.
So like in a combat.
Yeah.
Maybe like when traversing a dungeon with a bunch of traps.
Uh-huh.
Maybe when heading into an ambush. Maybe
Yeah.
in a dramatic scene where your resources and your social standing are
Yeah.
up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you're just wandering through town and you miss like a couple beats, it's not a big deal. But if it's like if you acted on misinformation and you just got yourself killed, like you're gonna be pissed.
Or you just got yourself demoted.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you were going to be part of the vampire court, but now you're once again a lowly,
Now you are food.
food.
And the other one would be when game has clues or important information that needs to be that's required to get through.
Oh, you mean like a core clue?
Yes.
Yeah, core clues. Yep.
So mysteries are generally the most common
I
part
would
of
think
this,
so.
right? Yeah.
Mysteries, intrigue is another one.
Yeah, intrigue and mysteries share some
They do.
spaces.
They do. Now that is our explanation about.
Should we
shared
now
narrative
go
space.
to the next thing?
You know what?
What?
There's a show on the network called Zhangyu Hustle.
Is there really?
Yes, there is. Train alongside fellow students Eric Farmer and Eli Kurtz in Zhangyu Hustle.
Are they still students?
I feel like they're.
I feel like they're
now.
masters. Yeah, that's.
So
should
should
say-
we
they should-
train alongside fellow masters? Well, not fellow masters, the masters of their
Yes.
dojo.
How many episodes are they?
27.
Yeah,
Plus-
that sounds
plus
like they're
some side
probably in
hustles.
master territory. Yeah.
A lot of side hustle.
Yeah.
They should cut their braids off.
Ooh, there you go.
Their
That-
Padawan braids.
Yeah.
Cut those off.
Anyway, Eric and Eli make their kung fu stronger by watching wuxia films, then discussing how to apply their observations to game design, which is brilliant.
It's very good.
And all because we did one of our worst episodes ever.
Worst episode
150?
ever.
No, 150. No, we did the martial arts one. They after years of putting it
Was
off.
it 100? Was it 150? Was it? I
No,
thought
it was
a-
back there. It was awful.
back there. It was
Just
bad.
was-
just
was
know
not a good one.
just know it was so bad that PK Sullivan, Eric and Eli felt the need to have to go do a rebuttal show, and then it was so good that they made
Django
this show.
Hustle was born.
It may be the second proudest episode we've ever released is because we spurred them on. Because their show is so good.
Yes.
That
so much better than what we put forth.
right, their show is actually so good. I'm so happy it exists.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And if our crappy episode led to it in any way, then I feel fulfilled.
Anything from the chat room before we move on?
Yeah, we have a comment from Ange. She said, we should also assume that the PCs are competent and not idiots. If the player has declared that they're doing something that you think is dumb, obviously the player's probably missing a key piece of information.
I mean, this is game dependent, of course, but in general, yes.
Yes,
in
I'm
general.
100% with you. Unless, of course, the conceit of the game is you're an idiot.
Well, yeah.
And I say that in paranoia.
Sure.
In paranoia,
That's-
I may
that's
not
where I
be.
was- that's where- that's one of the
I may
places I was
not be
going.
so inclined to save
Also,
you. In
also,
paranoia.
if your play style is an OSR style play, and you've predetermined that if you miss something, it's on you.
that's
because you
hey,
predetermined that.
That's
Yeah,
a
you've got-
session zero
Yep.
table
Yeah.
consent thing.
So there are certain I don't want to say that it's an always 100% true thing,
Yeah.
but it is generally true.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
And I'm totally fine with that. I don't have a problem with that style of play.
Normally, I wouldn't care for minor edge cases, but I think there are some. That's a wider case.
Right. I think that
But
if you
I agree with Ange for the most part.
I think if you set that up, if you're listen, the way we're going to play is what you say is what you do, and everybody consents to it, fine.
Well, that's the old caller rule.
Right.
That's why you have a caller, so that the caller can say what you're going to do, and that is that is what happens.
Right. I remember, go back into the 80s and 90s. I remember GMs using this as a punishment. If tables weren't focused enough,
Well, that's-
a GM
Yeah.
would walk in and be like,
Dumbass
what you
GMs.
say is what happens. That'll get you all to pay attention now.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work.
It doesn't really work if you're still boring GM.
Tyrants, man.
Yeah, it's kind of
Stop being a tyrant.
Old GMs were a real mixed bag in those days. There's some great ones, and then there was some real throw out the trash kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Because
I like competency. Fate is a game that actually puts that right into the game. Right? Fate's your characters are competent. So
Yep.
yes, your character would never do that. You would not drive into the cement wall at 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So yes, I think.
unless you had your seatbelt on, you're trying to kill the person in the seat next to you.
Right, and then
Sure.
and then Avi brings up a good point, right? So if you're a fan of the PCs, you're not going to just let them ram into the wall. You're going to be really, you're going to ram into the wall because
why?
That's what you want to do. No, wall. No, it's glass. I'm driving through it. No, it's a cement wall. Oh, never mind.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So the reason I bring up the things that I bring up is because we have a very the people that are in the chat room tend to be a very specific audience that has a very shared specific play style.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I generally share their play style too.
Yeah.
But there are other ways to play these games that sometimes have that are more than we think there are.
Oh, yeah.
More
Sure.
people play these games in those ways than we think there are, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I don't have when you set up your table to be like that,
Yeah.
and everybody agrees, you can pretty much play as long as you're not hurting anyone. You can pretty much play any way you want, and it's totally valid. But you're absolutely right.
But I don't bring it up for the minor edge case. I think there's actually a fair number of people
Yeah, no, it's
that
fine.
play in that style.
It's good to occasionally point out that, there are other opinions and play styles that are not what we tend
That's-
to lean toward. Yeah.
That's why I'm over here doing
Exactly.
what I'm doing.
Yeah. So knowing that means that you have to, knowing that means that you're going to probably have to invest more attention, right? Which means that sometimes a game will be a better or worse fit for someone, right? Because if somebody does struggle with attention, then playing something really strict like that might be more difficult for them. It might be less fun.
Also, playing with a large group is probably not good for them.
Correct, because you get it's easy to get lost on what the whole group is
Yeah.
doing.
It's honestly one of the reasons, I find that people don't really have the attention span that they used to have, which is why I don't generally run games for more than 4 people, 5 at the most.
Right.
And only those 5, if I'm running it for 5, it's usually a bunch of people that are really good friends that really want to be there doing the thing.
So that's a great point that I actually didn't put in the original notes that I'd like to bring up right now, which is the more players that are in the shared narrative space, the more likely the shared narrative space is not aligned.
Yeah.
Because
Sure.
you just have so
It's
many
more points of failure, like you mentioned.
right, you just have more people who either missed a detail or filled in a detail, whatever. Like when you're playing with a small group, if you're playing 1-on-1, it's super tight. If you're playing like 2-on-1, like our ideal is what I top out
Should
at
we
4.
just kick into our thing, like the next part of the show, since it's about like tips and things like that?
Are we through?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
through.
because I mean we're essentially talking about that now.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's
So,
do it.
Like, let's continue on this thing. We're going to talk about as a GM, what techniques do you use to help maintain shared narrative space,
Yep.
SNS? Which one of the things is like when you have multiple points of failure, like what do you do? Like,
Sure.
one is to not build a group that's so big that it has too many points of failure.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think if you're going to do, like, when people are like, I'm going to do a 10-person game of D&D, put down a battle mat. Like, because the battle mat's going to do a shit ton of work for
Yeah.
you cheaply.
Yeah.
Like, there is no, like, that's why, like, when you see, like, huge tables of Savage Worlds or huge tables of D&D and they've got the battle mat out, it's like, okay, it's good. The battle mat's doing a lot of work on the shared narrative space.
Because you can see the wounds and you can see where everybody's at. You can see
Positioning.
who's like in combat with each other.
Where's the fire template?
Yeah, where's the fire template? Like,
Yeah.
you're
Absolutely.
right. That battle mat, the folks on the map will do a ton of work for you.
Right.
Just a
If you're
huge
doing
lift.
if you're doing a 10-player game, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that is. If
Oh,
you're
there's-
doing
we know there is.
right, but if you're doing a 10-player game, no battle mat. Like you are doing a lot of work.
You're talking a lot.
A lot.
You're doing a lot of reinforcing and a lot of recapping.
Yeah, recapping is actually the tip I was going to mention.
So,
Recapping
so let's talk about recapping.
Sure. So recapping is probably my favorite GM tool, which is periodically, as the game is going on, I will describe what I think I'm seeing. Right. I'll describe it back to the player. I'll be like, okay, like here's what I'm seeing. I see like the car comes skidding to a halt, and the passenger door pops open, and you roll out, and you come up both guns, and you're shooting targets 3 and 4. Right. I'll just say that, and wait for the player to be like, yes, that's what I said. And I'll be like, cool. But what it does is by repeating it, there's a chance that like everyone else is taking it in.
And it's good to do that. I agree with you. Another trick for recapping that I do is like I will let 2 or 3 entities take their actions
And
because
then-
they might be mine, and then I will recap
Yes,
it because
absolutely.
that keeps that when you start recapping after every person,
Too much.
It is a latency
Yes.
issue, and it is like a drain on people's resources.
Yep. Yeah. To go 2 or 3 in, that's great, right? To 2 or 3 in, and then okay, and then like I see Bob, he's like hanging out of the top of the car with the shotgun, and Jerry is rolled out the side door. Like yes, and then pull that back together and be like, cool, Glenn, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's I think a huge one.
There's a really good one in the chat room that they're talking about that I wanted to address, which they're talking about setting when the players don't know the setting as well as the game master. As a game master, if you are running a game for players that don't know the setting as well as you, it is imperative that you take up the knowledge for the characters. Like they try to understand a thing or they think about a thing and they narrate that they're thinking about or saying like, "What do I know about this?" You have to tell them what they would know.
Yeah, I did this a little bit in Tales from the Loop, where I would say to the players like, "Oh, like that robot, that's not uncommon. Like you've seen that robot, like you've seen that type of robot working in the fields, outside of town, that kind of thing."
Yeah, and as a game master, when you're creating scenarios and whatnot, like you need to have little notes for yourself to be like, explain this, because they understand it. The players don't understand, but the characters understand it, or the players don't understand it, because that is a thing to point out to them, like you have no idea what this is.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think also what helps is I will do my like Rick Steves like tour guide impression, right? So like in the middle of like describing something, I might stop and be like, "It's actually pretty well known by you guys that like the police like use this type of like robot for security stuff." Like just like a quick little like I always picture it like a little sidebar, but sometimes I will sprinkle those in so that it's like, no, this is a thing, like it's common. Or I will say to them like, "Oh, you see this robot in the mall parking lot? You like normally you see this thing out in the field. It's really uncommon that it's wandering around in a populated area."
Like we were playing Dresden with the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars, and I am very well versed in it.
Super Dresden
Now,
nerd.
I'm not as well versed in Tom's
Right.
Cleveland setting, but I know a ton about like the Dresden Files. So like every once in a while, I would put forth a nugget of knowledge about how like magic works, or how White Court vampires work, or whatever. That Brett's character would know, because Brett doesn't know anything about it, and he was playing a
Right.
wizard.
Yes.
Right. So like that was just me assisting where I could.
Yeah.
As a player, so you can do that as a player.
Oh, yeah,
as long as,
totally.
like, but remember, it's not, you don't alpha up and dominate the game and go full on nerd tour guide.
Yes. And don't be like Star Wars purist. And if the GM has drifted something, for God's sakes, don't throw a fit over it. That's not how lightsabers work. I quit this game. I dump your ass.
Well, that was from something. What was that from?
Stranger
Stranger
Things.
Things. That's right. I
dump
dump
your
your ass. Spoilers.
No spoilers.
So yes, I think recaps. There's a question I want to bring up from Avi, who was in the chat room, about the dangers of a battle mat having people overly focus on tactical positioning and stuff, and not on shared narrative. I think that's definitely a pitfall,
It is a pitfall.
but it is a thing you can work around.
Uh-huh.
But you do actually have to kind of take some work to.
I think when you get to a certain threshold of players, and you know what your threshold of players for this, like, it is more boon than bane.
I agree. I will also say that at smaller numbers of players, rather than having a very precise battle map, like an actual gridded battle map with folks on it, I will do shitty drawing on a paper, because then you can't be tactical with it, because I'm just like, well, the room kind of looks like this, and there's a thing here,
Yep.
a thing there,
It's
and a
also
thing
very
there.
effective. I love relative positioning maps.
Right, because it's like just enough information that people are like, okay, I see the shape of the room and I see the relative positions of things, but then still open enough that it's like, cool. So can I squeeze around if I kip up the wall? Can I squeeze around the
you
thing?
get that kind of play. And then if people are actually in, like, because a lot of those kind of games have rules for like being engaged with somebody.
Right.
If they're engaged, you just put the two bases together of the minis.
Exactly. Yep.
And it works really effectively.
I would very much do this. I used to. I don't do it too much anymore. But behind my GM chair, on my in my game room, I have a giant whiteboard. And so I would just take out the markers and draw a relative.
We drew a whole bunch of stuff on it when we played Dungeon World.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would draw like the crappiest looking map, and just like none of the lines were straight. None of them were like, people would be like, well, how far across is it? Like, I'm like, it's far. Like, it's not far. Like,
Yeah.
But I think that's the middle ground that Avi's talking about, is that with a smaller group, because that is harder to do with a bigger group, but with a smaller group, the relative position map gives you enough information to do some of the work for you, but is fuzzy enough that narrative positioning still works really well, because players can ask those questions, and then you can of course be like, well, yes, there's enough room to kip over the wall, defy danger.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Right? Like,
or make your acrobatic skill check.
yeah, absolutely. Like,
It sounds like you just triggered that skill. If
Yeah.
you want to read my Gnome Stew article on triggering skills as a game hack for
There
other
you go.
games.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
I just yeah, sorry, it's marketing.
It's all right. I like
I'm
how,
not
I like,
sorry
I like,
for my
I
marketing.
like how we did both. We did both dungeon games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
in
you
the
can
same
do
move.
it. You can do it in D&D.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I totally think I think that is the middle ground, and I am the master of I'm the crappiest cartographer. So I am like the master of drawing. Like,
Yeah, I'm
the
not.
shittiest
I'm not any
maps
good at drawing on the
fly.
quick
Yeah.
either. Like,
That's why I don't play Pictionary, because I'm awful. Okay. Cool. Want to do our second question
I
about?
wish is there other GM techniques that we have to maintain SNS? I mean, what did we talk about? We talked about
Recapping.
recapping. We talked about maps.
Relative positioning.
Here's the thing that kind of spins off of part of the discussion in the chat room. And let me go back to what Avi said. Once, Avi didn't find a clue because he said he searched the tree in the yard, but didn't specify that he was searching in the tree's canopy. And it was frustrating because it was a narrative dead end until someone said the special words that the GM wanted to use.
See,
That's.
That's
Go ahead. You want to say it? You say it.
It's just bad game master.
That's
Yeah.
bad game master.
to
Why,
me.
why is that a thing?
That should be something where you sit down during session 0 and you say, hey, when it comes to doing things like searching, all right, here's how we're going to handle this.
Also, what do you expect from us?
Exactly. I
or the
don't
game
want
master-
you to. I don't want you to specifically say I pull out every drawer and
Yeah.
I check the heater vent.
Or
and,
you might.
or
So
you, like
right,
yeah,
like
you need to establish those
you
kinds
might.
of things.
Yeah,
But you have
and
to
that's
set that.
fine. But then you better describe, as the game master, describe everything in the room.
Here's what I'll tell you that's shitty about that, right? So this is I'm going to refer to that. I'm coining this term right now. This is the Zork game.
Yeah,
master.
you got there.
Yes.
I was going there too. I'm
Yeah.
like, why are you
You
zorking your
didn't-
game?
Yeah, you didn't type search canopy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Search
so you don't
tree canopy.
search
Yeah.
tree canopy
because
right.
it could be the canopy of the tent that's in the yard.
So the question the GM could have done is if they were looking for a particular answer, and you were like, I searched the tree. My next thing would have been, describe to me how you searched the tree. Now, if we're playing a game where description matters, right? Because if we're playing a game where
that's a nice narrative clue to
Yeah.
like maybe you should do a little bit more. Like
Right,
you're on
exactly.
the right track. You're getting warmer. You're
Yeah.
getting warmer. Like
So you might want to say something like, if you're the player and you don't know where this is going, you might say like, look, I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to start from the ground around the base and go all the way up into the canopy. Oh, bing, there you go.
Yeah.
Or if you're playing a game with a skill, then you don't need a like I searched the tree. You're like, cool, roll. Like that's
Yeah.
that's good enough to
Yeah.
start working on the clue.
although if you need that clue,
Well, if you need that clue,
there,
don't make
there
them
better
roll
be
for it.
there better be some other consequence to searching other than
If you
not
need,
finding the clue.
If you need the clue, don't make them roll
Just
for
give
it.
them the damn clue.
I mean, if we've learned anything from Gumshoe,
That's the one place that I have a hard time with, because I mean, like, I want to be like, yeah, you can play games however you want to play games. Like the people that want to play the game, I mean, I'm fine if I know that I have to search everything to get the thing.
Yeah.
But I hate the one where I'm like, well, if I don't succeed at the roll, I don't get the clue. Then what
Yeah.
do I do? Now, as long as the game can proceed beyond that without that clue, it's fine. Like there's a Call of Cthulhu adventure out there that I can't remember
Yes.
the name of it is.
Yes.
Like you don't get the clue like in Act 2, and by the time
dead.
you get to Act 5, like you get to the end of it and then you just die
Yes.
because you didn't find the thing in Act 2.
it's
Now, of course,
Actually,
it's Call of Cthulhu, and
I'm
you're
f-
probably going to die anyway.
I'm fine with that because the adventure continues. You have no idea that you're doomed. That's pretty Call of Cthulhu to me.
yeah.
it's very Call of Cthulhu. It would be very shitty everywhere else.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess.
Here's the thing about that. In order to do that Zork level clue finding, like you need to specify that up front.
Yeah, like this is Zork level clue finding.
Like-
By the way, put it in your books, everybody. Zork level clue finding is a way to play a game.
That just got
Yes, it
coined
is.
tonight. It is a valid way to play, but again, like we said at the beginning of the show, like that's one you established. Like that's not one like I would not do that to a player in a con game, unless like in the beginning of the con game we were like, cool, let me explain to you how we're gonna look for clues.
That better be in my
That better be in the first
description,
5
yes.
minutes.
Well,
Yes.
one in the first 5 minutes, be like, if you don't want to play this game now, you can leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, like maybe that should be in my description, like of my game, because that's a very specific kind of play
It
style.
is.
to
And
me.
and
that's
again,
way more narrow to me than the other
sure.
stuff.
And I've seen it. I've seen OSR games where it's like if you don't describe how you're searching along the wall, you're not
Yeah.
going to find the secret door, and that's okay.
I feel like my experience with a bunch of OSR players they've moved beyond that.
Yeah, and
most of them, a lot of them anyway.
I'll be honest. The reason I don't like it is because stymieing in a game is not fun to me.
Yeah. Especially a con game.
Stymieing in a con game is the worst because for a con game, literally, I'm coming here to have a good time.
Yeah.
If you're playing in a campaign, some nights are good, sometimes less than good, but in the overall, the balance
it'll
of games that we're
balance
playing, it's good.
Hey,
but in a con game, I want to hit 90% or higher.
Comment in the chat room. It's a valid way for someone else to play a game in caps and not for me. That's fine because there are plenty of people out there that dislike and detest the way that we play.
Yeah,
games.
it's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
Like, I mean, and I'm not going to judge.
Feeding them clues without
Yeah,
any.
I'm not going to judge them for the way that they play,
it's
and I
fine.
prefer not to be judged for the way that I play.
I just know from my own experiences, from being a player and from being a game master. Like from being a game master, stymieing sucks because all you do is sit there. I used to have a name for this when I was a lesser skilled GM when I was running my Connex games, where I would refer to it as teeth pulling night. Mm-hmm. Like I felt like I was the dentist, like pulling teeth all night because I couldn't get the players to find anything. And in retrospect, what I realized is like the dissemination of clues kind of sucked. I was like, and then
What?
nothing,
Nothing?
nothing.
Oh.
What? Like, yeah,
It's frustrating, right?
It's frustrating
nobody
for
wants the
GM.
frustrating.
That's not fun. I mean, if you find that fun, I guess that's okay.
I don't, think
don't
that's
find it fun
I don't even know how that is fun. Like, because it's not moving
because you're
forward.
a sadist. Because watching them suffer because you're smarter than them makes you feel good.
That's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just saying. Trust me. I had that GM like
there
3
is
times.
there's a play style that works for that, and then there's just being a dick.
Yeah, but there were a lot. Listen, I don't know how common it is now because I'm very fortunate to game with some really awesome people who
Yeah.
have the same style. But in the 80s and 90s, I gamed with a lot of dicks.
Yeah,
Not my
exactly,
home group.
right?
In
Like,
case my friends are
So,
listening.
so
Like,
the
not you guys.
like
Other.
there's a right way to do the thing that we were talking about, the
Yes.
Zork style clue finding, which is like you search the. I'm going to search the tree. How do you search the tree?
Right.
Because that's guiding them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it gives them the indicator,
When-
like the beep, beep,
Yeah, when you
beep,
do the
beep,
Zork
beep,
kind of
beep,
thing,
beep, beep, beep,
I'm-
beep, 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 until you find it.
When you do the Zork kind of thing, I'm going to give you the most comprehensive answers possible. Right?
Yeah,
I'm not going
because
to be
you
like
need
right,
descriptions,
I'm not
like
going to be
you-
like, well, I take 2 walks around the tree and walk away. No, man, I'm going to take every fucking leaf off that tree. I'm going to I'm going to cut up the branches.
I stripped the bark off
No.
that
That's
damn
right.
thing.
Now
Is there
here-
anything written under the bark? Quick, strip it off.
Here, check this out. Now that made a lot more sense in like BX because it took 10 minutes to search a certain amount of area.
Yeah, that's plenty of time to search something. Yeah.
Correct, right? Like, but then it's like I'm gonna take my turn to search as much of this tree as possible.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, cool. I will say that will take you 2 10-minute blocks.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that will be
Hey,
2 ticks
that's
of
a
your.
thing. That's a thing. You're trading resources
Correct.
for
Yep.
effect.
Now that's why it's effective in that situation.
Yeah. And if there's a time limit, like you have to solve this before sunrise.
Or you like your battery on your flashlight, your apocalyptic survival game is going to run out
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
so many 10-minute
That's-
blocks. Now
that's
now we're
exciting.
playing a game.
Now, I would also say that if we were doing skill roll, that on a fail, I'm going to give you the clue, but I'm going to charge you an extra time block
Sure.
and run down
Yep.
your battery a little
Right.
further.
Or if if you're playing that more of the Zork style, I guess a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit more Zork. Like you're searching the tree, like you search the bark of the, like you search the trunk of the tree. Like what else? Like I mean,
Now,
Hey,
imagine how painful this is.
paths out. You could go left,
Right.
right, or up the tree.
Right. So now let me go back to shared
Man,
narrative
this is
space.
this whole thing is like destroying my mind.
But let me go back to shared narrative space. What if the reason this is all so frustrating is that the GM was very subtle to mention that one of the branches is hanging slightly lower than the
Right?
other ones because somebody stuck a bag up in the canopy and
Well-
it's pushing down on the right. But the
Yeah.
GM was
Let
like,
me-
well, you see this tree and it's got a lot of branches and it's got really dense leaves and like one branch is hanging low and the other branches are like over here and blah blah blah, and nobody got that.
Yeah.
Now, let me throw it out there. Like, is that bag in the tree really important, or is it like a bonus? Because if it's
Well-
really important, then you should just,
Yeah.
Correct. Like you walk by the tree, you see a bag in it.
or you walk by the tree and this one branch is suspiciously lower than the rest of them.
Right.
Yes.
I'm
Give it a little more verbiage.
I
there.
have to say that my philosophy on mysteries and RPGs is now heavily influenced by having run Gumshoe.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm like, here's the bag. There's a thing in it you have to translate. That now to me is more interesting.
The thing that I don't get that people talk about mysteries and clues. Now we're
Now we're just having a whole other show.
different show. Is the 3 clue theory? Like, I don't understand the 3 clue theory because you want them to get the clue when you're doing 3 clue theories. So you might as well just give them the clue.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why you're shortcutting it around because what happens if they don't get any of those 3 clues?
Then they're screwed.
Then what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
is the game gonna stop?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do they have
Well,
to like?
that's the thing you got to think about.
Yeah.
Like when you're if you're designing your games like that, which is why I always I like find the clues in order to stop the thing, right? The more trouble you have finding the clues, the closer the thing is to happening when you arrive.
Yeah.
Like that's my favorite setup.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, because it's like if you solve it early, then you arrive with an advantage.
Yeah.
If you have trouble solving it, you arrive at a disadvantage. You could still pull this off, but
But-
it could be more costly. Or I have a chance of having it complete. It is my all-time favorite framework for a mystery.
All right.
All right, we should
we've-
go on to the next one.
So,
Yeah.
as a player, what can you do to help maintain SNS?
Well, you can also recap.
You can recap.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's got to be something more than recap and props.
Well, no. As a player, you definitely are like active listener, right?
Right.
Active listening helps a ton.
Active listening. When you're a player be aware of how the rest of the table is. And if you catch the person who just got that work phone call and they're on their phone and they're missing that thing,
Yeah.
now you can help them
Yeah, just-
get back up to speed. Like, hey,
This is what happened.
this
Or you
is the
can
thing,
even stop the
or say,
GM.
hey, can you hold off on that for a second until he's ready,
Yep.
or whatever, or hey, just recap that real quick because
Yep,
so and so
absolutely.
missed it,
Or just recap it yourself.
or just recap it yourself. But yeah, it'd be a an advocate for the rest of the table if necessary.
I mean, there are times where the GM doesn't see everything that's going on at the table. Like if somebody gets a text and I'm having a really intense scene with Chris,
Yeah.
and I assume everyone else is in the with us in the scene, but like you and I are having this like like really tense moment.
Yeah.
And I don't see that Sean had to grab a phone call. Like that's a problem. If Sean gets up from the table, I'm going to see it.
Yeah, but if it's a text message and it's quiet,
yeah.
you're intensely
So
focused.
so having another player be like, whoa, I think Sean's
we need to-
Sean's
yeah.
got a thing going on.
Doing the check-in. Like, is everybody up to speed with what we're going on with? this
Yeah,
new
or
run
if you
here?
just disseminated a whole bunch of information,
Not
like,
the
is there-
okay check-in.
Yeah,
Just a check-in.
Is there anything about that you want me to repeat, or
Yes.
Yeah.
or hey, if
Absolutely.
you're the player, can you just fire that one part, that last bit?
So active listening, awareness.
Yeah,
Note taking if you need it.
sure.
Sometimes, like I did it once for Dungeon World. I wouldn't do it in every game, but when we were playing Dungeon World when Mike was running it, I was actually mapping, and that was actually a lot of fun. Like that actually helped me greatly keep track of spaces. Like just because in order to draw it, I had to ask enough questions about it.
It also keeps you engaged, but it keeps people engaged doing
Yeah.
stuff like that with the game.
I think the other part is know if you need help being engaged. Like I know that if I'm tired, that besides a cup of coffee, which is always helpful, the other thing that's guaranteed to keep me focused is to chew gum.
Because it keeps you awake.
Yes, because if it is my number one, like if I'm tired and I need to be awake, I do it at work. I do it when I drive it. Like if I drive long distances, like popping a piece of gum and chewing it keeps me centered and focused.
I don't know if you know this about yourself, but you always have to almost always be doing something to stay engaged with the game.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you get distracted.
Do you know I do that at work too? I am the kind of person who will run a meeting, and as people are talking, I'm scrolling on my phone through Facebook, still listening to the talk, but flipping through, and then I will put my phone down and be like, cool, all right, if I'm getting this all correctly, this is what we want to do next, and then like take some notes. It's very much it's very much a thing about me. It's actually why I do I think infinitely better as a GM, because I'm always on. I don't idle well, is what it comes down to, right?
So here's a GM tip for you to help maintain shared narrative space. Understand what your players need to have their attention kept.
And
Yeah.
as players, understand what you need to keep your attention.
That too.
Yes.
Like
Gotta
I think
have
I
that
know,
discussion in session 0.
right? I think I know now that like if I was going to play
It's
another,
not always easy to have that
Well,
in
no,
session
but
zero because sometimes
it's
people
a-
don't know and they don't think about those things.
right?
But if you pick up on it,
Me-
definitely be aware
Me
of
and
it.
Phil have never ever talked about what me and Phil just talked about in
Yeah, no,
7 years,
no, exactly. And I think now,
but
if
I've
I
known
was,
it for like 5.
right, and I mean I've known I've had that problem too because I do it at work, I do it
I
everywhere.
don't know if it's a problem. It's the coping
Yeah, it's my
mechanism.
coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But my other coping mechanism is that I could chew gum. And it may be better, I was just going to say, it may be better the next time I'm a player in a game is to just bring gum and just pop in a piece as I feel myself starting to like not focus and just chew it for a while. I'm actually going to probably experiment with that the next time I play a game is to just tinker with that. And I can't do it on a online game because chewing and the mic will be obnoxious. But at a table game, I could easily like not on my turn just be chewing a piece of gum and then on my turn just kind of tuck it to the side and and talk.
Do you know, for me, it's like almost the opposite. I feel like it's one of the reasons why I enjoy playing online games more than I like playing games in person these days in some way, shape, or form. It's because when other people are doing something that's not involved in the game, it's distracting to me.
Sure.
It
And
actually
if they're
it
off-
destroys my shared narrative space.
Yeah, which is why like that's why right, which is hard for the two of us in the, like being players in the same game, because I'm like fiddling and you're trying to stay engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, where that's why like if the gum thing works, it would be a very subtle way for me to be able to
it's far less intrusive.
to keep to keep myself focused without being overtly fiddly. That's the other thing I used to do, and I learned this from, I used to do this at work when I would get bored in meetings, is I start taking notes, not about the meeting. I just take notes about everything else that's in my mind, so that I can keep paying attention. Because what happens, if we have a second, this is why I write.
I mean, it's our show. We can do whatever we want.
This is why I write and design when I go to work conferences, because what happens is I go to a work conference and I'm listening to the talk, but as I'm trying to pay attention to the talk, my brain's like, hey, you know, it'd be a cool design film, right? Like, have you ever thought of this? Have you ever? So what I've trained myself to do is to get those thoughts out of my head as fast as humanly possible by writing them down. So like when I go to a work training, I have 2 notebooks.
One for game
I have
design
one
and
for,
one for
I have
work.
yeah, I have one that's like literally get shit out of my head, and the other one for write important work stuff down. And I operate like that for like the entire conference, because I can't pay attention, because the second I idle, my brain's like, you know, it'd be a cool Minecraft project. What if we just automated this thing? Like, have you thought about how we might automate it? And then I'm like, fuck, and I'm like, I quick sketch it out, and I'm like, cool, all right, I can go back to paying attention.
I can't do it. I can't.
And that happens to me when
I get hyper focused on a thing.
that's what happens to me when I play as a player. If I'm writing notes, 50% of the time I'm writing notes about the session. 50% of the time I'm designing like one of my games or jotting notes down about my own upcoming game. Not because I'm not interested, but literally I'm trying to get it out of my head fast as possible.
To me, this is the reason that I never had marathon gaming sessions when I was a kid.
Right.
Because when I am playing the game, I'm playing the game.
I'm not eating, I'm not peeing.
Did you notice how like when we used to play Dungeon World, I didn't do anything but we played the game for like 3 hours, and like you would all have to tell me like we should take a break.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's how you know a game is really good for me. Like when we were playing Things from the Flood the other night, I forced a break. Like we got to a point, and I think everybody would have kept going, but I was like, beat structure wise, it was like a nice pause point, and I was like, we're taking a 5.
Yeah.
We didn't need to, but I was like, but I think I let you up.
We did something similar in like the last or the second last episode of our Masks campaign. We went straight through start to finish. Boom. We just,
3.5 hours, no breaks. Like that game was intense.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, it is a form of doodling. Somebody was like, Phil's notes are doodling. It is totally doodling because I
Text
can't draw.
doodles.
So a big thing with SNS is understanding what keeps you engaged
Yeah.
and what engages your players and what engages the players around you.
Yep.
So that you can, help maintain some of that. I don't know, what else is there?
Question
techniques.
3.
No, technique-wise before
Oh,
we get there. Is there any
yeah.
more? Like, these are important things. Like,
Yeah.
this is actually a hugely important topic for running games. Like, it is a thing that I have thought about ad nauseum, but I just kind of do it while I'm there. And mostly it's me about managing the table.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's about managing the table, right? Because focus is a key component to shared narrative space.
It's part of why I try to be entertaining and a little bombastic at times, and also keep the beats flowing in the right manner. Like, all of that stuff will help maintain your shared narrative space because it'll keep the focus of players.
Yep.
Shared narrative space, like keep your description snappy if you can. I mean, that depends on the table.
Change your voice.
Change your voice.
Yep. Cadence will do a lot, right?
Yeah.
So if you are louder and then softer, like because brains are passively pick up on tonal changes.
They do.
So you can play with that, right? This is like the 1812 overture, right? Like this is
I know some people have like the thing with NPCs or whatever, but I tend to do voices,
yes,
even if they're not very good, because that shift.
Yeah.
it's a different sound.
It clues people into what's going on, and it keeps the shared narrative space so that you're not just saying, and then NPC X says,
Yes.
and then NPC Y says.
Oh, that's like the worst is when 2 NPCs have a conversation in front of the players.
Now, if you can actually change your voice,
yes,
it works a lot better.
Yeah.
If you have that skill set, which you can go and develop it. I mean, you don't have to be great at the voices. You just have to be able to do two or three different voices. And you don't really want to have a conversation with 3 NPCs. That's really hard. 2 NPCs, not so.
3
so
NPCs
tough.
summarize it.
I've done 3 NPC conversations before. I mean, those conversations are always with the players, though. It's
Yes.
just 3 different NPCs chiming in.
Yes, but those are particularly brutal.
That's hard.
If 3 NPCs are talking to themselves, I just summarize it for the players.
That's hard for me anyway. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's
No, I'm sure there's some people with some real
at it,
with
right?
some real acting chops
Yeah.
that pull that off nicely. I'm not one of them.
Another good one out there is knowing when to close a scene. That can help with the shared narrative space because it doesn't get too long.
Yes,
and drawn
because
out.
that kind of goes to Avi's comment about shared narrative space and beat structure.
Yeah.
So closing and opening scenes, so hitting those beats will help with focus.
Yes.
Because changes in beats are things that we also subconsciously pick up on.
Making sure that you don't have too many elements in your scene help a lot.
Yeah, don't.
Understanding a bunch of understanding a bunch of shorthand to help describe a scene.
So here's the thing, along those same lines, is determine your comfort level with how much detail you need and how much detail you're willing to let the PCs prompt you for or narrate. So for instance, if you are on the far end of the spectrum and you don't want any input from the PCs, then like you feel like the need to describe, like, you know, there's a half melted candle on the table, like blah blah blah, there's there's ink and quill and whatever. If you are more comfortable either answering those things on the fly or letting players inject description, you might be like, there's a table with writing implements, and then somebody might later be like, is there an ink and quill on the table? And you could be like, yeah, because it's a desk full of writing implements.
Because they asked the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
But those are two different things, right? One brings down the amount of detail, which shortens your description, which helps you be more focused. But it makes you have to later put in details, which if you're not comfortable with, like, you may not dig that. I am personally very comfortable with it. I think, like, I do the thing that you do in my head, like, if it's plausible, if it's plausible, it's probably there. If it's not plausible, I'd prefer a roll, a point of something.
Yeah.
And if it's impossible, then I'll just, then I'll probably just say no.
Yeah.
I like that.
Here's a good trick that I learned from D&D to help create shared narrative space from just the adventures. Like, areas tend to have a general description for what most of the areas are generally like. So, like, you're walking into a dungeon. Well, in general, it's limestone. It's roughly hewn. The floor is uneven. Passages are around 5 to 6 feet wide, and the ceiling's around 10 to 12 feet tall.
In general, unless I tell you differently.
Unless I tell you differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now
And
you're
all the rooms are
Right.
like that too.
You're in a dwarven dungeon. It's exquisitely carved.
Yes.
And it's precise.
This is precise. Everything's angled,
Yeah.
and the ceilings are short, only 8 feet tall in most of the passageways
Right.
because they're dwarves.
And-
Unless I say otherwise.
Right, and a cool way to do that is if we go into your rough-hewn one, and all of a sudden I describe a room, like, you walk through this, like, this opening, and this room is perfectly cut and smooth walls and everything else. Now you're like, whoa, wait,
This is different.
this is
Yes.
different.
Yeah.
Like, that's a mental prompt. Like,
Yep.
oh, now we should ask more questions.
Ears around the table will perk up and like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's always trickier when you start getting into different time eras, though, and you're trying to describe things that may not have an actual, like, thing that people can understand.
Yep.
So, like, how many of us are actually experts in Victorian era architecture? I am not.
Nope.
It's hard. Like, we understand. We generally then go to, like, any Sherlock Holmes thing that we've seen.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, well, we're gonna play this game in Victoria era London, except we're gonna use what I know of the Sherlock Holmes movies with Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr.
Jr.
Like, that is the kind of what we're going to go for.
And that's where I...
That's how I shorthand.
Right, and so my technique for that as a GM is if I'm learning a genre, I go Google image search.
Oh, Google image search.
Right, so
those are props, which are
Yeah,
great.
like, and sometimes I'll share them with players, but sometimes I'll just I'll have them myself. Like, I'll just look at a whole bunch of pictures of Victorian, like, sitting rooms.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I'm pulling here is, like, find some sort of media source that people are all fairly familiar with,
And tap
be
into
like,
it.
that's what we're going to utilize for our setting.
Oh, yeah, like, if
on
you-
on the high level.
Yeah, like, if you describe somebody as, like, oh, this guy looks like, if Mark Twain and Colonel Sanders had a kid, like, now I'm like, all right, I'm in. Right?
Okay, yeah,
like,
I
okay.
see it.
Or, I mean, I've seen games where, and I've seen people do it where they just use stars as their NPCs.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, like, that person, that's Robert Downey Jr.
Whatever your shorthand is.
Yeah,
This
and
guy
then-
looks like The Rock, but he's wearing like
Right.
dock worker
Well,
clothes.
do you remember?
and-
So do you remember I did? So for masks, I had a Nick Fury-like character for Aegis, and to shorthand him very quickly, I was like, he's Indian. He's the Indian Nick Fury. Like, he's an Indian man, but he had the long coat and the gruff person and that was it. Like, that and a few lines of dialogue, and everybody was set. Like, everybody knew Agent
Pal.
Agent Pal, right.
All right. As designers, how can we take SNS into account for our games?
Right.
Well,
What can we do to help GMs and players maintain narrative space?
Well, there are things like the Quiet Year, which is like you're drawing a map.
That's a great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Quiet Year and Companion's Tale both have that that activity.
The Fate has aspects that drop on the table.
Zones as well,
Zones also.
right? Because it makes you draw. You don't have to, but it encourages you to draw a very hastily written map with some zones on it.
Dungeons and Dragons has a set of rules that let you use miniatures in a battle map. That can help with shared narrative space. Although it also suggests that you can use relative maps
Yes.
Yep.
along with miniatures, which can represent what characters look like.
Dig it.
Or if you want to, just for positioning and things like that, use tokens.
So I think what we're getting here is that all the design things you've picked are physical implements.
Yes.
The question is there any way to help a GM, or is this just a GM skill and a player skill?
Oh no, box text.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Box text
Box
actually
text.
creates a shared narrative space.
Yeah, box text is great.
Don't suck at it. You can go listen to Down with D&D. Sean Merwin talks ad nauseum, and I do too, about how you can write a quality box text. And it doesn't just apply to Dungeons and Dragons; it applies to any game.
There's a
'cause
good way to write
is
box
universal.
text, and there's a bad way to write box text.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it's about how much box text. And also, if you're going to use box text for some things, and also just like bullet point lists of like, here are the elements that you should be describing
Yep.
in other places.
Yep.
And
I'm
that-
a big fan, even though I don't GM anymore, I'm a big fan of seeing, here's a list of bullet points of like the five senses.
Uh-huh.
Here's what they're hearing, here's what they're seeing, here's what they're smelling. You know, list off stuff to trigger the different senses. I'm a big fan of that.
There's nothing wrong with that. It is not my preference. I think the five senses get too convoluted a lot of times. I only think you need 3 of them a lot of times.
Well, yeah, you don't necessarily need all 5
Yeah,
for every
right.
scene.
But you can utilize. You should
But
think
yeah,
about that.
Throwing
and
an
utilize
extra
them.
sense in here and there makes
Yeah.
it really nice.
Also, for the point of designing, like me and Sean sometimes disagree on this, but sometimes we agree. It depends on the day of the week. Like there are certain places that you should be using box text, like it's very effective, and there are certain places like don't use it because
Yeah.
what happens when somebody can come into a room from 4 different ways,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Like
now
box
you're
text.
writing 4 different boxes.
Well, no, most people don't. Like,
Right.
how do we know where they're coming from,
Yeah.
or what the situation? If the situation can be changeable, those are the times that you don't use box text.
That's where something like a little map and some box text, like without using the box text to give hard physical positions.
Well, that's when you can just use a bullet point list. Be
Oh,
like,
there you
here's
go.
what's in here. Just use this as your as your
And
description.
here's the little map for
Yeah,
what the room
absolutely.
looks like. Yeah.
That's a great one for just like expressing via words how things work.
I think also, I don't think it hurts to make recommendations about where or how a game is best played. Like, one of the things that we talk about in Turning Point is, as much as possible, don't play this in a noisy location. Like, this is not a game that does well if you can't pay attention to what's going on.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
thought.
Right, like it says, like, this game is about intense conversations. You should set up this game where you can have more personal conversations when possible.
Hey, I'm going to piggyback off of something a question the chief asked.
Well, yeah, because the chief asked it.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, he said, what do we think about something like Dread or Starcrossed, the tower? I mean, it doesn't represent something in the game like a map does, but it represents an aspect of SNS, which like the imminent danger or approaching release of tension.
Absolutely.
It is perfect because I was going to
Yeah.
go right off of that. Like, tone is a great setter for shared narrative space.
When you're watching
10
this-
candles.
oh sure,
yeah.
when the candles start winding down.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
just even the setup is like,
Yep.
well, we're going to play in a dark room that's supposed to be quiet, and the only light is these candles.
And
Yeah.
the thing I remember from 10 Candles is when you get down to the last couple candles, the mood shifts and gets a lot more, a lot darker because the room is physically getting darker. It's getting hard to see dice. It's all of those things,
And
right?
that helps reinforce the shared narrative space.
Yep. Oh, I mean, for sure, when Senda and I played Starcross during one of the prototypes, that tower got super rickety, and so as you're working on the scene, like this tower's not going to make it for too much longer. So you start part of it is you start meta gaming. Like my character gets more intense, right? Because the tower is getting really wobbly. Like, I think it's going to come down soon.
Yeah, it is a prompt for that. It is a tone setter, and it is that idea permeates pretty well through all that. The reason I bring up 10 Candles, by the way, is because the FM Gamers are playing 10 Candles on the 28th of October.
Oh,
So
fun.
tune in from 7 to 9 to watch the FM Gamers play
Such a
10
good
Candles. We have somebody that's out of town, so
Stephen Dewey's giving a talk on designing games with emotional content at Metatopia. I'm pretty sure that's on.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure Senda and I are going to go catch that. I told you my Stephen Dewey story, right?
no.
Wait till the after show.
There's a comment in there that the feeling is that SNS is the fiction and that the block tower can represent something that informs the fiction. But we had an example earlier about how if you misunderstand the tone, then you can't make proper decisions.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, we're going into the creepy forest, but you missed that we're going into a creepy forest.
Yeah, if I just used the word creepy and you didn't hear the word creepy,
Yeah.
like, that's a problem.
So, like, the setting of your actual game space and the tone that you're projecting via music, too,
Yeah.
Music will do it.
can really help reinforce a shared narrative space. It's not the same as talking about it, using that primary
It'll be an
methodology.
auxiliary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an
It's an
auxiliary.
enhancement.
It's as much of an enhancement as props are, because they're all, what we're talking about are props.
So to that point, one of the things we can do as a designer is for certain games we can offer up playlists. Like, here's a playlist of song. Here's
Yep.
a playlist that I think fits this game perfectly.
Uh-huh.
Like, now that has a very
Hey, man, have you heard of a game called The Ditch Lilies that's coming out sometime next year?
yeah, I've got a pretty kick-ass Google Play playlist, and I think Senda has an equally kick-ass Spotify list.
That won't reinforce the tone of the game at all, I would imagine.
Well, you know, for for Things from the Flood, I jumped on my phone, I put my little speaker on, I jumped on the phone, and I was like, cool, make me a station based on Tool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it was like Tool and Silverchair, like a whole bunch of other bands, but it was like really dark and kind of like oppressive, kind of grunge.
It was 90s music.
And it was perfect. Like, it fit so well for everything that was going
The
on.
Queen's freaking out because I said next year. I mean, he didn't argue with me, so I'm just saying.
Next year? Oh, I don't know. I mean, next year people will probably get a chance to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
But
yeah,
I don't.
it'll
It's
be
not.
around.
It's not coming out next year.
Maybe those Misdirected Mark folks at $10 or higher will get a copy of it.
I mean, there might be
Like a beta-
Yeah,
beta of it or
well,
alpha.
there's going to be some beta testing, and
Yeah.
and patrons will certainly get access to that.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's move on, I guess, because that was shared
That
narrative
was
space.
good. Anything left in the chat room, or did we?
I think we hit everything.
We've got one comment
I do
that's
have-
unrelated that I
I do
saved
have to say that
later.
the comment by Pixelscapes, Jen Gagney, one of our patrons, thank you very much, was a good one. It's worth bringing up and talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Avi had that really good one about
Uh-huh.
about the battle mat and the pitfalls of the battle mat.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that. Like, it was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Anything else? You said there was one random outside comment?
Yeah, actually, let me throw this out real quick. Chromatic Chameleon said, you guys need to publish a short PDF with a Session 0 sheet list. All of those. You need to establish this in Session 0 type questions and
That'd be
comments.
fun.
Like a
I will also
Misdirected Mark Session 0.
I will also recommend from the Gauntlet community, look up the cats.
Cats is
technique,
wonderful.
and there's a sheet for it. I don't remember where. Rob might know where it is, but Cats is a wonderful Session 0 technique.
Do you know, Jen, I practiced Gagney like 17 times until I had it stuck in my head so I wouldn't say it wrong.
Yes.
So I said it wrong for like a year and a half.
Yes, I'm pretty sure we did it too on Pandas.
All right.
Yep.
Let's do this. So it's the conversation corner.
Conversations, having conversations.
We should really come up with a jingle for that. It sounds like
just-
a jingly thing.
I just did.
We could probably do better.
Let's go to the conversation. No, I don't know. Anyway,
We'll figure it out.
what's up?
Something like, to the tune of Beach Blanket Bingo, like Conversation Corner.
I don't
Yeah.
know beach blanket bingo.
Because you're not old.
That's true. I'm not.
I know of it. I'm not that old.
I'm not that. I'm not old enough to even know
Frankie
what you're talking
Avalon
about.
and Annette Funicello,
I
baby.
feel like I would know that because I know those names pretty well, actually.
Yep.
So I love sports season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you do.
sports season. The Bills are good.
The
The
sports.
Sabres are good. Like
There's this
football's
weird.
on. It's
what
fun.
was it? I saw it on Facebook. The weird convergence where both the Sabres and the Bills had 4 wins.
Yeah.
Like that's a weird.
More now.
No,
Yeah.
we're more now. So.
I don't think the Sabres have ever. I don't think the Sabres went 4-0 to start a season in a long. Well, they weren't 4-0.
It's been a while.
They haven't had 11 points in 6 games in a long time. That's saying it. It's fun. It's fun. That's all I have to say. Also, like if you're into baseball, like that's going on right now too.
Yeah.
I hate
Baseball playoffs.
Can't stand it. Like it's.
Go Yankees. You grew up outside of New York City.
That's
Go
fine.
Yankees.
That's fine. I hate the Yankees.
It's fine. You can.
I'm a
it's
Yankee
okay.
fan.
It's okay to be wrong.
It's fine.
Go Yankees.
Whatever. Whatever. I'm a Braves person.
It's okay.
I was a Braves fan for a long time.
Well, it's because they were on TBS.
I liked
Yeah.
So you
Major
could-
League.
I watched them all the
Yeah.
time.
I liked Major League. Major
That's
League
the
was good.
Indians.
Oh damn it!
If you're gonna make the
Nobody
reference,
likes the Indians. Even Cleveland doesn't like the Indians.
I mean, you could try and make the reference. We'll just mock you for it
It's
afterwards.
fine. What do I know? You said TBS. That
Hey
was
man, the
football.
Giants are interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
Yes.
haven't been watching too much football,
because
but
of,
I'm glad they're not sucking.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones is the quarterback. This is the sports segment. Well, I'll be done in about 120
Yeah,
seconds.
don't worry. I got a
I'll
bunch
be
of
done in
nerdy stuff.
120 seconds. Okay.
Back to the nerd stuff.
Yeah,
after
Daniel
that.
Jones, like they got Evan Ingram's a really good tight end. Saquon Barkley's an amazingly good running back.
Did you want to say anything about your fantasy football game?
I mean, the fact that I beat the Weregator.
Yeah,
like,
that's- I thought you might wanna mention
Yeah,
that.
it was pretty awesome that I put him down. That's I was pretty happy about it. I wasn't going to say anything, but since Phil brought it up,
Yeah, no,
my other league I'm 0-7. So
Wow, considering you were
I was in
second place last year.
I ended up in third because I lost my first round playoff game by 0.5
Gotcha.
points.
But wow, that's gotta
Well,
be tough.
it doesn't help when like your best 2 players in your team are like hurt for half the year,
Oh, that's brutal.
or not what they were. It's a problem. It's been a huge problem. Like, anyways, football is an enjoyable thing to watch. I have my issues with the NFL. Also, if you're interested in a great joke, the XFL had their draft today.
That's the thing.
The XFL is back. They had their draft today. If you don't know what the XFL is, that is owned by Vince McMahon.
Yeah, no, I know
You know
what it
the
is.
WWF wrestling
Yeah.
guy. He tried it once before and it didn't go so well.
Except that one of the coolest things that came from it was the line cam that
The
goes.
line cam, yeah, the
That was
line
an
cam is
XFL
now a NFL staple.
The NFL was like, we'll take
yeah,
that.
we'll use that thing. So if you want a good laugh and you know anything about sports, you can go see who people who got drafted and picked up on those football teams. It's hilarious. Yeah, that's all. I'm good. I'm done. I'm done talking about sports ball.
Cool. You
Yeah, I because of sports ball and sports puck and stuff, I fell down a media rabbit hole of watching this stuff, and I'm not getting anything
Your
done.
designer call is coming up.
I know my designer call is coming up, and I have to get some stuff done. And Chris and I need to schedule some time to work on some
Mine's
stuff.
tomorrow.
But yeah, so
I'm
I'm
pretty busy until November, man.
Yeah,
For-
I know.
for
We
those-
just squeeze in like 3 hours one.
For those who don't
Somewhere.
know, when you sign up as a designer for Metatopia, you have a call with Melissa or Avi, depending on how many times you've been, to go over what play tests you want to do, what things you need, that kind of thing. So mine is, I don't know if you scheduled yours. Mine is mine and Senda. We're having our call on tomorrow with
Yeah, I
Melissa.
haven't scheduled mine yet.
You better get your ass in gear.
I
Do you
know.
need me to like start cracking down? Do you want me to come
No,
out with
I
them?
need to crack down. That's,
As
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
I spent the weekend. I had the kids all weekend, so I had the kids for the 4-day weekend, and it was pretty cool. Like they were really chill, like which made it pretty easy. I did a bunch of digitally designed stuff.
Nice.
Dante and I binged all of Cobra Kai season 2.
Which is really good,
Holy shit! That series is amazing.
right?
That series, I've said it multiple times. There is no reason that a TV series based on the 3 Karate Kid movies could be this good, and yet it's amazing.
Because when you have competent writers that know what they're doing with the source material,
But they're so. But the thing I love about it is they've managed to mix nostalgia and the commentary of, I mean, serious commentary on toxic masculinity.
Yep.
Into this and make it seriously educational, eye-opening, still funny at times,
Yep.
and still at times punches you right in the heart.
yep.
Like that episode, again, no spoilers, but the ones with the original Cobra Kai, those, like the scenes in the bar,
Tough.
like all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like this is
Well, they're not kids anymore; they're adults.
and
Yep.
they're all messed up.
Yep.
Like they're all messed up from being in that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, but anyway, and I had to actually unpack a lot of that for Dante because at 14, Dante didn't get some of the subtleties to that. So
Yeah.
like I unpacked a bunch of it with him and like kind of talked about like, you know, these guys like they're all still together, but they like went through a thing.
Uh-huh.
Like they like have a shared trauma that they're actually that affected them. Anyway, that I can't say enough about that show. Like, look,
Not spoiling anything,
Like-
because people that watch the first season, if you
Right.
watch the first season, know that the source of their trauma like shows up in season 2.
yes, and it's
It ain't good. It's good, but it ain't good.
Cobra Kai lives on
YouTube.
YouTube Premium.
Yeah.
Which let me just tell you, if you don't have YouTube Premium, if you have resources, the $10 a month to get rid of commercials on YouTube is almost worth it by itself. But you also pick up Google Play Music, YouTube Premium, and no commercials on regular YouTube.
Not only that,
Like,
but if you want to use the YouTube on your phone with your phone turned off, because you can't do that with YouTube
Right.
normally, like
It'll
you
just
can.
keep playing,
It'll just
right.
keep playing songs and things like that.
it is actually for $10 a month. It is actually a really good deal.
And you get access to the YouTube Music app. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You get the YouTube Music app and the Google Play Music app.
Oh.
Yeah, you get a lot. Anyway,
Pretty okay.
Yeah.
I did that, and then I played a bunch of Minecraft in my solo world. And I am definitely now firmly into mid game. Like my ability to create things like a giant factory. I redid all the buildings on my base. They're all modern looking now. I didn't realize, by the way, that concrete makes you run fast.
Oh yeah.
So I built some concrete, and then like I walked out on it, and I was like, vroom, and I'm like, oh, okay, sure, that's a thing.
I once built a tunnel through a mountain.
Yeah.
And paved it with concrete,
Just to
so that
zip-
you could just go to the other side of the mountain without having to go over it.
I do have to say that this mod pack that I'm playing has a lot of things in it that I really want to put in our mod pack because overland exploration is really interesting. Like recurrent complexes and mow villages adds like reasons to just go out and like pick a direction and just go. Oh, do you want me to tell you how I got killed?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gliding, and I see prismatine in the ocean, but not in a temple. And I'm like, oh, if I could not have to go to an ocean temple to get some prismatine for building stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I find this like just prismatine, like vein of it sitting underwater. So I quick drink a potion, go down, and I vein mine it. Right. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna vein mine it. Well, it opens up into a fucking giant cavern, and I like fall into the cavern because the water pushes me in. And I'm like, all right, I kill a couple monsters. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna swim out of here. And then I turn and look, and I see wood, and I'm like, oh, abandoned mine shaft. I'm like, all right, before I'm out of here, I'm just gonna see if I can't find a chest or two for a couple loot capacitors and get out of here.
Nope.
I run across this bridge, and I mistake this one blue block because prismatine is still like all mixed into this. I mistake the one blue block, and I'm thinking, oh, that's prismatine, like somehow randomly inserted. It's not. It's a square of water, and it's a lava pit right underneath it with 3 of these lava octopi. Fall in, burn to death. Grave 4 blocks under the lava. So I was like, screw it, I'm going into survival. I'm going into creative mode and going to get my gravestone back. And I had to like fly in there. I had to wall off the entire pool and then scoop out the lava blocks until I could get to my gravestone and pop it open. Pain in the ass. Anyway, I had a lot of fun. I worked on some auto crafting and some other stuff, good stuff. But yeah, that was my weekend. It was Minecraft, Ditch Lilies, and Cobra Kai. And the kids. My kids were, I was actually impressed. My kids were so good that I complimented them all weekend long. I was like, you guys have made this like really easy. I even got my game in, and they were up for like half the game without yelling at each other, without fighting. So it was good. Anyway, that's me. I'm ready. Let's go.
So I went to Dave and Buster's this weekend. That was fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Played some games.
So you also enjoyed sports season, yes? You went to Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
Did they sell the Mario Kart game?
They did, but I didn't play it.
Oh, I love that.
Me and Jen like to play like some of the tickety games because we collect the tickets.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Me and her, we have something like she's got like 3,000 on one of her cards, and I got like 2,100.
It's
on
nice that they
mine.
just put it on the card,
Yeah.
and not make you carry like you know.
But like we play like there's the beer pong game, and there's a really fun cornhole toss game, and there's like one you can throw a football through
Sure.
holes.
Yeah.
Let's shoot some baskets. We play a lot of those kind of things.
I love Mario. I love their network.
We also-
Their big network Mario Kart thing.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they have that right now. Maybe they do. I just missed it. We play a lot of the shooting games too, because Jen likes to shoot guns.
Oh, I love that stuff. I love shooting, like the Terminator game.
Jen likes to shoot real guns when she can, but she really likes to shoot. We'll go shoot fake guns. I don't really like guns. I'm not a gun person.
If Jen ever needs
I
anybody,
like
if
video
Jen,
game guns.
if Jen ever
like
needs anyone to go shooting with, I'll
LA
go shooting.
machine guns.
Yeah.
Remember LA machine guns?
LA machine guns.
You got to actually hold the thing because it
Yeah,
vibrates
that's
Oh,
and
I
you'll.
loved LA machine guns. I grew up shooting guns. I like shooting guns. It's fun.
Let's see. Last thing. So, I've been sleeping a lot more. I caught up on I actually got like 8 hours
Whatever,
of sleep a
rub
night
it in.
for the last like three nights, and it was wonderful. I feel so much better. Like I was kind of down for a little while, and today when I woke up, I'm like, no, I feel okay.
Feel called out now.
So, I mean, did I say anything about you? And your
I'm
sleep
feeling
habits?
guilty.
That's fine. You can feel as guilty as you want.
I actually couldn't sleep 8 hours if I tried.
I know you couldn't.
6, and I'm like, fuck it, get up.
Really, it's about 7 for me because if I sleep too long, like I slept for like 10 hours one day and I woke up and I felt terrible because my back was all sore. And because I'm, 40 and I work a job where I'm on the ground a lot of the day right now, cleaning grout. So it's nothing wrong with it. Like I don't mind doing it. It's just, aches and pains. So sleeping is really rejuvenating. Like I started looking into it too, like how bad it is for you to not sleep. Man, it's really bad for you to not sleep enough. Who knew?
Unless you have the gene.
Unless you have the gene like him. So
I don't know if I do, but I
for
feel
all-
like I do because I should be dead now.
for all of us normal people, not superhuman people,
Right. It's not superhuman. Trust me, it's more shitty than you think it is. I'm sure that I'm supposed to be sleeping 8 hours. I
man,
just won't.
hypersomnia. What is
Wow.
hypersomnia?
You sleep too much?
Yeah.
Wow.
I really can't. Like either conditioning, whatever, genetic disposition, 6 hours, and I am 6 hours and I cannot maintain like sleep. After 6 hours, like I'm awake in bed and I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck it, I gotta get up.
That's
Unless I'm sick and then I
Look,
sleep like
yeah.
14
look.
hours.
Not everybody needs
No,
everybody
needs
needs
it.
8 hours of sleep. Like some people are tuned differently.
That's my daughter, and it drives everyone else in my house crazy because you put her to bed at like 8:30, and she doesn't really go to bed till like 10:30, almost 11. But she's fine.
because
like,
she doesn't need.
she
that
doesn't
much-
need it.
She's like you.
It's half a curse.
Yeah, I usually get right on the border between 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Within like half an hour, give or take.
Yeah,
and I'm usually good. But then there will be one day during the weekend, usually, where I'll get like 8, 8.5, 9.
I'm really a 7 hour.
But
A night person.
here's the thing: for as shitty as my sleeping is, the other thing I do is I take frequent naps. Like I take a nap almost every day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to with your sleep schedule.
It's not just my sleep schedule. I need to clear my head out of one day's worth of work and get ready for the next one. And the
Ah.
best way to do it is just to turn it off and
Yeah,
reboot it.
That's fair. Okay, so that's me. Like sleep
That's
as
the
much as you
thing.
need. Find out how much you need and get it.
Yeah.
But good for you for getting that.
Yeah.
That's always good.
I'm gonna try to keep it up now.
There you go. That's the challenge.
Yep.
All right, let's do some Patreon shoutouts. Victor Wyatt, Zach Goins, J. David Chrisman, V, Waxberg, Rory McLeod, Ninjabi, Savannah Sizer, Daniel Thomas, Joseph Peralta, Jen Pixelscapes Gagney, J.T. Evans, T. Acoustic, The Tabletop Bellhop, Andrew Demps, Scott Ryder, Curtis Y. Takahashi, Mike Amer, Richard Ruane, Noah Bond, and Austin Lemke. Oh, there's one more on the next page. Glenn Seiler. Thank you so much for being our patrons.
Yes, and thank you everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's Time, come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with our other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us amazing questions.
They really do ask us amazing questions. They were all on point tonight. Oh, Lord.
This show would be 80% of what it is if it wasn't for the chat room
I
keeping
agree.
us
Yes.
propped up along
I
the way.
agree. Also, it wouldn't be nearly as interactive.
Correct.
If you cannot make it to the live show, you should check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. Also, take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bonestone Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, Jangu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can also check out the FM Gamers, which has a podcast version now that we'll be releasing on Wednesdays, and the Bicons, which, you can catch that on YouTube. All this stuff's on YouTube too, by the way. You could go to the Misdirected Mark YouTube channel. We also have these sibling podcasts that we like to, pimp out. Pimp out? Is that the right term? It's probably not the right term. Is it the right term?
Probably not the correct
Probably
term
not the
anymore.
correct term.
Support?
Support is probably right. There's got to be a cooler word than support. Maybe not. Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming MBS.
After you have recapped and before you take your move, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. I know what you think is going to come next, but Mark Zuckerberg, you can kiss my liberal queer ass. I'm not saying the name of your product on the air.
Yes!
Check us out on Twitter. Hit us up at Misdirected Mark. That's the show and the network. I'm DNA Phil. He's Robert M. Everson. And that is the Light 101.
Hype. That's what we should be doing. We should be
Hype.
hyping up our sibling podcasts.
Hype. If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhangyu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhangyu Hustle. And last but certainly not least, Bonus Experiences at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and occasional other special releases.
Apparently we're getting yelled at, and I don't care because
I'm standing by my actions.
Screw-
I read the news this weekend.
screw that guy.
That's right. Screw that guy.
That's right. This has been a Misdirected Mark production. That's about as political as we'll get on this show.
Correct.
The media arm of Encoded Designs. Mike. Drop!
We